Now, they say that human beings only use 12 to 15% of their brains at any one time. According to his DeviantArt profile, Beethy, my guest today, is 94% obsessed with butts, which makes what he does with the other 6% even more amazing. Beethy is a photographer, but he's chosen what would seem a narrow niche to ply his trade within: cosplay. Now, cosplay is a very interesting hobby. It's a combination. People tend to say that cosplay is a portmanteau of costume and play, but I tend to think of it as more of a union of costuming and play. It's a maker's hobby predominantly, though you can be a cosplayer if you go out and buy a costume from a store. Most hobbyists tend to make their own, or at the very least modify an existing costume to suit themselves and their tastes a bit better. But then there's also that element of play. Cosplay is almost a performance art, where its hobbyists will go out in public even if that public venue is a genre convention, like Supernova in Australia, or the various Comic-Cons, or Dragon Cons, or Gen Cons, or the like in the States. And they will actually try and bring some of that character to life in that public place, even if it's only through pose. Yet, even though he has chosen what would seem something of a narrow niche, Beethy is thriving within it. For starters, he knows his stuff, as he demonstrates during our chat when he gives a crash course in cosplay photography. For seconds, he has respected his hobby as a business from an early stage. He's resisted the temptation to downplay his talent or others' willingness to make use of it. But for thirds, Beethy has a reputation, one that flies in the face of his attempts to seem a bit of a perv. After our chat, I mentioned his name to a cosplayer who just moved up from Cairns to Brisbane. "Oh, Beethy," she immediately replied, "he's such a sweetheart." And she hadn't even met the guy yet. Cosplayers love Beethy. Not only does he help them look fantastic, and fantastic prints seem to be the main way cosplayers earn money from their own hobby. That's something I intend to ask some cosplayers about as soon as I can get a few on the show. But he's a funny, kind and gentle soul who, I'm sure, would not have a harsh word to say about anybody. His enthusiasm for the art of cosplay and the enthusiasm of cosplayers is obvious. It makes his shoot sessions more of a collaboration between Beethy and his subjects, as they get the best out of costume, makeup, hairstyling and wigs if necessary, pose and surroundings to tell a story in a single photo. But they also trust Beethy, not just to get results, which he does, but they also trust him. That's something perhaps you don't think about when you think about cosplay or modelling in general, but going off somewhere with someone where you're going to get changed into costumes you perhaps can't move so well in can be kind of risky, especially if you're endeavouring to bring a little bit of spice to your photos. Check out Beethy's photo profile and you'll discover that some cosplayers have chosen to photograph them not just in costume, but also in very little, and sometimes no, clothing. Surprisingly few though for a guy who claims to be 94% obsessed with butts. Beethy is loved and trusted not only to that degree, but so much that, as you will hear during our chat, both of his trips overseas to work with cosplayers last year and early in this year have been invitational. The people who invited him covered his flights and accommodation. Cosplayers want to work with Beethy, not just for the end product, but for the fun they will have during. He's comfortable around them, and they're comfortable around him. Not bad for a Dutch boy living in Australia. During this chat we make reference to some of Beethy's work. I've included links in the show notes, but this is one of those episodes where you might want to be in front of a computer or have ready access to an internet-enabled device that you can quickly make your way around so that you can see what Beethy and I are discussing. If you're not though, don't let that stop you listening to a great chat with a lovely guy. As I mentioned, we touch on how to take a good cosplay photo, but we also talk about the business of cosplay photography and even turning imposed restrictions into creative limitations. Beethy has had troubles of his own, which have forced him to pare his kit down to a minimum. In doing so though, Beethy has discovered that he still had more than enough to keep plying his trade. So please, listen on. Beethy, thank you very much for coming on the Pay to Play podcast.
That's okay. It's a nice and beautiful Saturday morning here in Sydney. Um,
Thankfully, it's hopefully just as nice and beautiful in Cairns right at the moment. Unfortunately, I've got the curtains drawn, so I can't tell. But it looked all right when I got up this morning. So tell me, what are you digging right at the moment?
this is kind of weird, but when I flew out to Washington, D.C. about, I guess it's about 2 weeks ago now, I started playing the Spyro games by Insomniac Games.
Ah,
I've never played them, and I just downloaded them on my PlayStation Vita,
mm.
and I really got into them, and I did not expect that, but I got really absorbed into the games. It was a long flight, so it was about a 30-hour flight.
Yeah.
So I finished two of them, and then when I came back, I started playing the Ratchet and Clank trilogy, also made by Insomniac Games. So it's like a continuation of those
Mm,
Spyro games. So that's what I'm really into at the moment, which is kind of weird because they're old games,
mm,
but they're still really good. So I'm heavily absorbed into those. Yeah.
mm. Well, it's nice to see, and pardon me, it's nice to play examples of classic games and realise why they're classic because the gameplay still holds up. And will you excuse me a moment, Beatty? The dogs have now decided it is the time to make their presence felt.
That's okay.
Sounds like you've got a few cockatoos in the background at your.
Yeah, they just flew over, and I think they're fighting or something. That's
Bloody animal troubles. All
it's
right then.
okay.
Okay, I'll see if I'll try and usually if I let them in, they will settle down fairly quickly. So with any luck, that should. Yeah, there we go. If you'll excuse me, just one moment. I'll do a little bit of editing on this, but I figure it's I'll keep a little bit of it in because well, a little reminder that you can struggle for perfection all you like, but sometimes the world just won't let you have it.
That's
I'll
right.
be right
Yeah.
back. Ah. Now I've got two dogs in a room with me with no fan to try and keep the noise down, and one of them just banged the mic stand. And so, of course, hopefully, unless they just sit and take it easy, at least one of them's going to be panting. So, well, thank God for Audacity is all I can say.
Yeah.
Ah, so, yeah, right at the moment you're enjoying Spyro and Ratchet and Clank, which I've never been. Have you been a PlayStation gamer for?
Yeah, I always have. I never really owned a Nintendo 64, so
Mm,
when the PS1 came out, I think my brother had one, and later on, I think I owned one as well.
mm.
But we had a lot of PlayStation 1 games. Then from there, I actually moved on to the Dreamcast.
Ah,
But then when the PlayStation 2 came out, Dreamcast kind of died off
yeah.
because of marketing problems. It was a great system, but just didn't hit it
Mm,
off. And then I went on to PS2, PS3, and right now I just have a PC though.
mm,
I don't see the need to buy a Wii U, Xbox One, or PS4. I just, you know,
yeah.
I can play those games on my PC much better at a higher frame rate
Mm,
and a bigger resolution.
mm,
So,
mm.
you know,
I do kind of know what you mean. My first console, believe it or not, was an Xbox.
wow,
I had never really owned any consoles before that, I guess, because I sort of didn't really see much of the need or the point. And then Halo sold me for the Xbox because it was the first person shooter that I could play for a decent length of time that did not make me motion sick.
wow, wow,
So it sort of felt, it felt like a bit of a revolution there. And I upgraded to the Xbox 360 for Halo 3. And funnily enough, I feel kind of sad for the 360 because the Xbox, for the first ever console that Microsoft put out, did such a great job,
wow.
and then the 360 tripped over its feet with all the ruddy manufacturing issues. I
It
think
did, yep.
I'm actually on my third 360 at the moment because the first one I got, uh, I wound up having to send it back in a few times. Then I think it died a death. It refused to start up properly. Then I got a second-hand one from Game, back when there was still Game in Australia, or
Yeah,
for that
yeah.
matter, anywhere. And that did me for another about 3 or 4 years, and then it started playing up. And a couple of months ago, I traded my a bunch of comics that I wasn't reading anymore for an Xbox 360S. You know, the Darth Vader design.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's just sort of been sitting quietly in my entertainment unit, not really seeing all that much use. And I have no interest in getting a one. And I actually have no interest really in playing Halo 5. I think sometime around Halo 3, Halo 4, I finally realized that first person shooters just really weren't, they were getting samey.
Well, I think it's more the fact that the newer Halo games are developed by Studio 343 or something. Is that
Yeah.
their name?
Mm.
They're not developed by Bungie. So when that happens,
Mm.
they're trying to make the same kind of game, but, they can't quite get there.
Yeah.
I always find that when there's a different studio that picks up an existing IP. This happened with Ubisoft when they were developing Splinter Cell.
Mm.
Um, while they were developing Splinter Cell 1, they had another team develop Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow.
Mm.
And as soon as the guys from Splinter Cell 1 finished developing that, they started working on Chaos Theory.
Yeah.
Now, 1 and Chaos Theory are extremely good, but Pandora Tomorrow, no one remembers that. The second game just wasn't good. It played like a Splinter Cell game, but it didn't have that same feeling,
Yeah.
The levels weren't designed as well.
Mm.
The gameplay was kind of a little bit wonkier, and yeah, that's what happens when you have a different developer try and pick something up.
Mm.
I think the only time this really worked was with when Treyarch picked up Call of Duty.
Ah.
They didn't do a bad job, I think.
Mm.
Especially World at War, the one set in World War II.
Mm.
Came out after 4, I think.
Yes, the one that
Was
popularized.
it titled Call of Duty 5?
The numbering system is all bloody over the place nowadays.
It is. They don't. What's going on with that? By the way,
Uh,
there's no rules. There should be rules with the numbers.
Well, I mean,
It was like Black Ops 2. Which Call of Duty is that? 7, 8?
yeah, yeah. Well,
And sometimes they introduce numbers back in.
yes.
What's with that? You have Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3. Then you have 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you have these PS2 titles, I think, Deception and some other one, And I don't remember the names of them, but there are a few PS2 titles. Then Mortal Kombat 9 comes out, and I'm sitting here thinking, what the hell? What's
Yes.
you can't just pull. Mario Kart did this as well. Mario Kart 8, there was no 7, right?
No, there wasn't.
You can't do that. I don't think you can do that. I think there should be a law or a rule with the numbers. You either keep the numbers or you drop them.
Yeah.
You can't just bring it back.
I think they think that if Microsoft can get away with it with bloody Windows, then, anybody can, because, I mean, Windows 7 and 8, I'm sure that there were more versions of Windows in the meantime than, we should be on something like 10 or 11 by now, but no, the next one's going to be...
You know who I think the culprit is?
Hmm?
I don't think we have to look at game developers for this or publishing studios. We have to look at the movie industry. This goes back as far as Rambo.
Yes.
Right? Because you had the first Rambo movie wasn't called Rambo.
No, it was First Blood.
First Blood. And then the second one was it Rambo First Blood 2?
That's right. And then the third
Right,
one
and then
was...
the third one's Rambo 3.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No.
But they did it
Yeah.
and they got away with it.
Yeah.
Since then, everyone's like, okay, whatever.
Oh, well. And at least they kind of gave up with the fourth one. And did they actually... I think they just... Actually, they were originally going to call it John Rambo. And then, no, they didn't quite get away with it because they dropped the John. And it was just Rambo. And so, okay, wait, okay, so this is Rambo. But it's after Rambo First Blood Part 2 and Rambo 3. So is it Rambo 1? Or is it a prequel? And of course... getting back to Microsoft, Xbox One, for crying out loud.
Do you know why they did that? Do you know why they did that? It's actually very interesting.
Tell me.
There was a post that was submitted anonymously, right? Where a guy that said he worked at Microsoft actually said why they went for the title Xbox One, right? It's because everyone started calling. So you had the first Xbox. People just called that Xbox, right? But colloquially, the Xbox 360, what did everyone call that?
Well, I guess they would have called it Xbox 2, I assume, or just the 360.
No, everyone called the Xbox 360 the 360.
Yeah.
Right, right. So based on that sort of, I guess, way of thinking, Microsoft said, okay, with the Xbox One, we're going to call it the Xbox One because everyone will call it the one, the one
That
console. You know, the
yes, that is
that was their aim, but everyone started calling it Xbone,
yes.
which
That sort of backfired.
or
But
Xbox One or Xbone. No one calls it the one.
well,
It didn't
that's
work.
that's what happens when you try and take your marketing tips from the Matrix, my friends. That is what
Exactly.
happens. You want to go all Keanu, you've got to be prepared for the backlash.
You do. You do. Yeah, so that's
Which,
what happened there.
oh boy. And I think we've just sort of taken a fun 10-minute digression away from the subject of the podcast, which has been absolutely fun. And if you folks listening out there, I hope you've been laughing along with us and not been going, oh, come on, get to the point. Um, so, all right, getting back to the point, Beethy, you
Sure.
are a photographer, but you're not just a photographer. You are a photographer who is focused on the field, the passion, the hobby of cosplay.
Yes, yes, I am.
And it looks like it all kind of started about 7 years ago when your girlfriend introduced you to your true love.
You have done your research, my friend. Yes,
Yes, I.
that's right.
so,
Wow, that's impressive.
so tell me, Beefy, tell me about your true love, and have there been others since?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by that,
Your,
but
I believe she handed you a digital camera,
she,
and
okay, okay,
then
sure,
on,
yeah, yeah. So
yes.
she had a little crappy digital camera. I think it was more than 7 years ago now. I
Mm.
don't remember exactly when, but it was a while. I think it was in might have been in 2003, 2004. But she had a small little digital camera. It was an Ixus 20 or something. It was one of the first ones, you know? It had a really tiny LED screen at the back. And I just noticed she had one, and I started using it
Mm.
just for fun. I was just bored,
Yeah.
you know? I started taking photos with it, and she said, "Hey, those aren't that bad. Those pictures you're taking." I'm like, "Really?" You know? I'm just pressing a button. It's easy, you know? And if you go to my DeviantArt and you go all the way back, you have to click all or something, and you go all the way back. Those photos I took with that little Ixus, they're still up there if you want to have a look at them.
Mm.
They're not very good. But back then she said they were good. She pushed me to kind of keep doing it. And later on, I think it was for my birthday or something, she bought me my first DSLR. And it was really then when I started to get more and more into it. And eventually I started taking photos of her, which kind of happened naturally because she was my girlfriend
Mm.
and she was just there all the time. So, and I was always kind of drawn to taking pictures of people because I feel that if you take a picture of a person, you can really tell more of a story. You know,
Mm.
it's more difficult when you just take a photo of a landscape or bugs or flowers, which I also did. I also kind of explored those territories, but I was never as drawn to it as I was to people. I enjoy telling stories with the way they're kind of standing in a scene or their expressions or whatever, you know.
Mm.
I was really, really drawn to that. Eventually, I started taking photos of more of different people, which came very naturally to me. And I've always been into video games, and like you can tell early in the podcast,
Mm.
and a little bit of anime here and there. Not really into it anymore, but I was back then, and I used to go to conventions.
Mm. Mm.
I was actually at the first ever convention in Australia. I was there.
Oh,
It
fantastic.
was it was I think it was Animania 2004. I don't remember exactly when. I think it was 2004.
Mm.
I might be horribly wrong. But I was there. I was at this small university in the city, and they only had a few rooms. The cosplay stage was in this lecture hall, and looking back then at the cosplay quality, everyone there was just having fun. They just whipped something out
Mm.
in a few minutes. That's what it really looked like. And looking at it now, it's crazy how much it's grown. But since I was going to those conventions
Mm.
a lot, I went there without a camera, because I didn't think to take photos of cosplayers.
Mm. You were
I
just
don't
going
know why.
because, yeah, just going because you wanted to go. Mhm.
Exactly. And she said, "Hey, why don't you bring your camera?" I think she
Yeah.
said this in like 2008 or 2009.
Mm.
I was like, "What? Why?" You know, she's like, take pictures of people there, and I was like, no, no, that would look weird. You know, that's not gonna look good. You know.
I can sort of understand the feeling. I mean, um, especially nowadays, there's always that little worry that if you're wandering around with a camera just taking photos, that someone is going to object and see you as weird and or report you to the police. But look, tell me, from the sounds of it, she got you over that worry, or at the very least she made sure that there was a camera in your hands when you left the house. So what happened that first con when you went around and started taking photos?
Well, I saw a Samus cosplayer
Mm.
just standing outside preparing. I think it was for a skit or something with a group. This Samus cosplayer is actually Hayley Williams. She still cosplays.
Aha.
And I saw her. She was wearing Zero Suit Samus, which I thought looked really awesome. It was actually really well made. She had the gun and everything. Her wig looked really believable.
Mm.
And I just took some photos of her real quick right there. You know, not much preparation.
Mm.
They turned out okay. And what was really amazing was when I uploaded them, the feedback from all the cosplayers was incredible. You know, they were all going crazy over these pictures. And I think I came back the con after that. I took even more photos, and the feedback was just ridiculous. You know, everyone was just really excited about me as a photographer in cosplay,
Mm.
because back then there were only, I think I might be wrong on this. Don't quote me on this, but there were only two photographers, including myself. There was a guy called Icy Perez is his photographer name, but he was kind of only shooting his friends, which were mainly they were mainly these Asian girls, you know, doing very Asian cosplays. That's what he's always been into, you
Yeah.
know. And so there's all these other cosplays that weren't getting any shoots.
Mm.
They went to conventions and they got hallway shots, you know,
Yeah.
just against with people in the background and everything. And back then I was the only one kind of doing shoots.
Mm.
You know, so everyone noticed and they just went crazy, and everyone wanted to work with me, and it made it very easy just to do a lot of shoots.
Mm.
You know, it was very exciting at the time. You know, to have all these, because that's the first time I was really sort of, I guess, approached like that by a lot of people at the same time.
Mm.
You know, and it kind of went from there. Yeah.
Mm. When was the first moment where you realised, whether anyone had actually pointed it out to you before, but when you sort of, perhaps the penny dropped and you thought, hang on a second, this could be an income for me. This could help pay my bills.
Well, it was really when my stuff took off
Mm.
really well on the internet. I started getting, you know, I would upload a picture and would get 500,000 views in a day,
Yeah.
you know, and that's when I thought to myself, hey, maybe these people might want to buy my stuff or something, you know, because there's so much traffic coming in. I thought, you know, I could probably use that or something.
Mm.
There must be a few people here and there that would buy a few photos. So
Mm.
I set up my store and just noticed that people were actually buying these photos, and that was an amazing feeling,
Mm.
actually. Just going to the post office and shipping these off, you know, just putting these in these little tubes or boxes or envelopes and shipping them away. That was a really good feeling.
Yeah. So where were you actually, I assume by these we are, of course, talking about prints of the photos that you'd taken.
Sorry, yeah, photo prints.
Yeah,
Yes.
where were you getting them made?
So I did an experiment with this. First, I asked cosplayers where they got theirs made,
Mm.
and I don't mean any offense here to the cosplayers, but most places they went to were very low quality.
Ah.
And that's probably just to save money, and it's also probably because the people that buy off them don't really care.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know, and I was really surprised at this. I just, to me, the quality was just not good enough. You know, as a photographer, I want my photos to look the way they should.
Mm.
So what I did is I went to a few places. I went to about 5 different places in Sydney.
Mm.
I went to a professional photo printing place, which was somewhere in, it was on Epping Road here in Sydney somewhere. And they cost quite a bit of money. It would be cheaper if I did things in bulk.
Mm.
But I just printed one there. I went to Officeworks, printed one there. I went to a camera shop, which had a professional printer, did one there. And then I went to Big W, which had this little Kodak machine,
Mm.
and they print on Fujifilm paper. And I compared all of them. And it turns out that the Big W prints were on par with the professional photo print shop, which blew my mind.
Well, well.
You do pay it does cost $3.50
Mm-hmm.
for a print, which is very expensive at Big W,
Mm.
but you get what you pay for. So, yeah, it's nice and easy. I just go down there every couple of weeks,
Mm.
do my prints and pack them up, and yeah, that's it.
And you just mail them out to everyone around the world who is buying them.
And that's just I love looking at the addresses when I print them off,
Ah, that
because I'm
must
like,
be.
there's some guy in Japan buying my photos, there's like a bunch of guys in America that
Uh,
want my stuff, and it's like it's a really, really gratifying feeling,
mm,
you know.
mm,
And I'm glad I'm doing it. And I'm also glad it's working.
yeah.
So
Um, it must be one heck of a thing, not just to have such a following of uh, around the world of people who buy your prints, but also when I look at your online presences and the things that you're up to, and the people you work with, it seems like one heck of a thing. You have developed a lot of very strong friendships and a lot of trust within the cosplay community. One thing that leaps to mind is the project that you were involved in last year, The Journey Beyond, which was multiple cosplayers and yourself, and I think I don't have the page open right in front of me at the moment, but at least three other cosplay photographers, and
yep.
as far as I can see, most of whom were located in the States, but they actually got you all the way from Australia. I mean, when did that start happening? When did you first start getting involved in the overseas scene as well?
That all started when, gosh, I think that happened in 2013 or late 2012 when I started talking to more people overseas.
Mm,
Just messaging them over Facebook, and I'm just sitting here in Australia admiring these photographers,
mm,
and especially cosplayers over there, just the stuff they are doing.
yeah.
I would draw inspiration from that, and I started talking to them
Mm,
about that, and it really just went from there. Americans like to have these little. I guess we started off on Tiny Chat,
mm,
so everyone has like a little webcam, and everything. I think I didn't have one back then at
mm.
first, and we would just be in there like every day just talking. And I started off talking to this photographer called Darkane, and Chloe, who's called Sushi Monster. She's a cosplayer. She was in there, and just a few other cosplayers who'd be in there, just crafting things, just making things.
Mm.
And that's how I started talking to them. Back then, this a little guy called Monty
Oh
would
yes.
actually he would join as well, and that's how I got to know him. He was a great guy, and he will be missed. But
He certainly
I
will.
yeah, but I met him in there, and he would show us the warehouse that he was doing all his motion capture in,
Mm.
and he would be wearing his little black motion capture suit, just sitting there on Tiny Chat, and yeah.
So, had he started at Rooster Teeth by then, or was this just?
No, he couldn't talk about it. I think he was
Mm,
working on Ruby,
mm.
but he couldn't talk. But he said he was working on something really amazing,
Yeah.
and that he was doing all the motion capture for it, and that he had to. He was saying that it felt a bit funny how he had to do all these feminine movements.
Mm.
We were making fun of him for it, but yeah, that was presumably what he was working on back then.
Yeah.
So
God,
yeah,
they sound like I think I very quickly while I was doing my research, I had a look at a couple of videos by Jessica Negri, and I think I saw something like what you were talking about, where it very much looked like I have the feeling the place for these sorts of things now is sort of becoming by default Google Hangouts, and
yep,
there was multiple streams going on. Transferring to whomever was talking at the time,
yes,
and they
yes.
were, working in various places, and doing quite literally making things. It seems like, especially if you know, people like us who are in Australia, and sometimes it's hard to connect with enough people who are doing the sorts of things we do. It almost seems like they're these lovely little supportive, creative environments that.
There are. That's not to kind of insult Australia here or anything,
Mm,
but in America, what I find there is that there's more support.
mm.
You know, I also feel there's less of a hierarchy.
Ah,
Like Jess, for instance, and Jessica, Yaya, Kamui, they all kind of help anyone.
mm,
Anyone that approaches them, asks them, "How'd you do this?" They will help them. Um, and that really surprised me.
mm,
That they would just help anyone regardless of who they are.
mm.
I guess it kind of warmed my heart.
Yeah. Yes,
Um,
there does seem to be a lot of love in that environment, and a lot of
Absolutely,
paying it forward.
absolutely, a lot of positivity. You notice that when you're at a con there, that there is so much positive energy. Everyone's happy.
Ah,
It's amazing. It's like this little dreamland.
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're getting me all jealous. Anyway, so getting back to the Journey Beyond,
Sure.
it was a Kickstarter project. From
Yep.
what I can see, it started with, depending on how you look at it, a fairly modest goal of about $3,000, and from memory, it got at least four times that. So, uh, tell us a little bit more about how that went for you.
I think it just went really well. So basically, once it was all finalized, I flew over there
Mm,
and just had the time of my life. And yeah, I had to work hard as well
mm,
because I had to shoot every day.
yeah.
But once the evening time hit, that's when we would all have a little bit of fun, and it was just an amazing adventure to
Yeah.
me. I got to meet all these people that I've always wanted to meet. I was in this house just filled with either Blizzard enthusiasts, because it was around BlizzCon,
Mm,
or and cosplayers and photographers, and we'd be in there every day, just talking to people, getting to know new people, and helping each other out.
mm,
And yeah, the road trips were really fun when we had to drive out to do the actual shoots. We'd
mm.
go to San Diego and you know do our work there. It was just amazing. It all went really well. Yeah.
Now, was this the first time that you actually met and got to connect with a lot of the folks who were there, or did you pretty much? I mean, I figure you would have had to have known at least some of them already to be involved in that project. But and was that the first time you'd actually been out to the States?
That was actually the first time I've ever been to America. Yeah.
Wow, bloody heck!
And
What an introduction.
it was amazing. I had an incredible time.
Mm,
Their food is so good. I understand why some Americans are a little bit larger,
yeah.
because the food there is just it's ridiculously good. That's what really surprised me the
Mm,
most.
mm,
So how amazing the food was. People there are also really nice. Just any kind of American person,
mm,
any random stranger, they're really friendly.
mm,
Surprised me too. And yeah, it was a crazy introduction to the
yeah.
country.
Mm. Yeah, it always seems to be a thing when you come into a culture from the outside. You tend to hear a lot of, oh, yeah, they're a pack of assholes or whatever. But when you actually visit their country and meet them, you tend to find that by and large, most of the people you meet uh, are very gracious and very polite and quite welcoming.
I've not met a single person there who's been rude to me.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, that says something.
yeah, that is fantastic.
Mm.
Um, so after Journey Beyond, You is Katsukon the first time you've been back since then?
That's the first time I've been back. So I'll tell you how that happened.
Please.
This is still kind of unbelievable. Uh, so after I came back from BlizzCon and from California, I just missed everyone so much. I had an amazing time.
Mm,
I went to this pirate wedding over there. This is still in November, this was in Phoenix.
yeah,
That was on kind of my last. I think it was 3 or 4 days before I flew back,
yeah.
and Lindsay Elise, this cosplayer, got married, and so we just headed up there. We drove up there. It's a 5 hour drive from BlizzCon
Mm.
to that wedding in Phoenix, and it was just amazing. You know, that's when I got to know Jessica a little bit
Mm.
better, and Jessica's family. Her brother is just awesome, James Nigri, and her mom and dad. I talked to them as well. They're just lovely people, you know.
Mm.
And I just had such an incredible time there. We drank a lot, we ate a lot of food,
Uh-huh.
we danced. I think I sang, I rapped "Forgot About Dre" to like everyone there. I was on stage, just rapping.
Now,
I did a pretty good job, you know. And
mm,
so I came back. And I had all these amazing memories, you know, all these wonderful memories from America. And I'm sitting here at home, when you get home, you kind of reminisce, and yeah, you might feel a little bit sad. So
yeah,
yeah,
and you've
I was feeling that post-con depression. That's what they call it, you
yeah,
know.
you've
I was feeling feeling it pretty badly.
you've just left a very heightened environment, a
Yes,
very, there's a
yes,
strong emotional high, and then you sort of get back home, and you look around, and it's like, gee, it's the same old stuff.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was around end of December
Mm.
when, yeah, right. It was around Christmas. When I couldn't sleep that well because I was, all my friends are with their families, And I did get invited out by a friend to join, their family, but I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And my Christmas at home was always just amazing, just with my family, but I couldn't be there,
Ah.
because I'm just all the way in Australia, and it costs a lot of money to go fly over to the Netherlands.
Mm.
It's all the way in Europe.
Mm.
So I was at home and I was like kind of feeling a bit down. And I think it was about 8 a.m. when I commented on one of Jessica's pictures.
Mm.
She uploaded just a stupid picture, and I made a stupid comment. And she just said, "Hey, Beethy, make a hangout right now." I'm like, "Okay." I was about to go to bed. I was feeling really tired. 8 a.m.
Mm.
I hadn't slept yet.
Oh, bloody heck.
I think it was like 8 or 9 a.m. and I was like kind of feeling really out of it. So I make this hangout, and she joins, and we kind of catch up a little bit because I think we hadn't talked for about 2 weeks or something. And she's like, "Hey, you're coming to Katsucon, you know?" And I tell her, how am I gonna pay for that? It's a lot of money. I can't just suddenly do that. I wish I could.
Mm.
And she's like, and she just goes, "What's your PayPal?" I'm like, "What?" And I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
Wow.
So she pretty much wired all the necessary funds over, and that was that. And I was coming back, and I could not believe it. I could
Mm.
not believe that someone would be so kind.
Mm.
I
Mm.
just could. I really, for like a few weeks, I couldn't believe what it was happening.
Yeah.
It wasn't really hitting me.
Mm.
It's just unbelievable. So yeah, it was because of her that I went over there. But as part of a deal, as part of her flying me there, I did have to shoot everything that she managed to put on in those few days,
Mm-hmm.
and give her the images license free,
Right.
which I had no problem with
Yeah.
because that was a fair trade.
Yeah, for bloody
I was more than happy enough to do that. So
absolutely. So you spent the con as her photography wench.
yeah, I had to be
Mm.
I was her photographer, which was just awesome.
Mm.
And we just shot as much as we could. We managed to shoot 4 of our Evolutions costumes. We were gonna shoot, I think, 8 of them, which was very ambitious,
Yeah.
especially with the drinking at night.
Mm.
I don't know how we expected to wake up early.
Mm.
Um, but we did 4, and I think she's gonna shoot a few of them with one of her photographers in America called his name's Larry something,
Mm.
Larry. Forget his last name, but yeah, she's shooting a few with him. She's coming back to Australia. I can't say when or where
Mm.
because I don't think she's announced it yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But she's coming to Australia this year, twice.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'm shooting the rest then. So I'm shooting the rest of the costumes here in Sydney,
Oh,
which
great.
will be a lot better because it's not going to be freezing.
Mm.
And I know the place really well. I know the city, the back of my own hand.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Bloody marvelous.
Yeah, but Katsucon was just unbelievable.
Mm.
Unbelievable convention.
Mm. Now, to get perhaps a little bit on the technical side,
Yeah.
what, and I will confess straight up front, I would not know an SLR from whatever other types of camera there are out there. So let's make that
Okay.
clear straight
Sure.
up. But tell me, and for all the people who are photography enthusiasts or who are interested in getting into it, what kit are you using at the moment?
Okay. So at the moment, I'm using a 6D, Canon 6D, which is I think their cheapest full frame,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm using it with a 50 millimeter lens, a 50 millimeter 1.4. That's a 1.4 is the aperture.
Right.
And so the reason why I only use that's all I use.
Mm.
There's no lighting, there's nothing else.
Mm.
It's just that lens and the camera. That's actually because if you look at my gallery or my portfolio,
Mm.
I actually get into something else to kind of explain this. So when I started cosplay photography, I was buying a lot of gear. My girlfriend at the time, she worked at Canon.
Ah.
I could get a lot of gear pretty cheap, and I could also borrow gear from her.
Mm.
Like I've used literally every L series lens there is. So L series lenses are the high professional grade lenses. They
Right.
are the lenses that go for about anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000.
Mm.
So they're good. And I've used all of them, so I kind of knew what worked for portraits and what didn't. Now, so it's something that happened. I think it was around 2012 or 2011. I was actually hit with generalized anxiety disorder. I
Mm.
was hit with it pretty bad. So what this pretty much means is that back then I had panic attacks every day.
Oh boy.
Every day, randomly. I didn't know when they happened. I didn't know how to counter them. I didn't know what to do. So I lost my job because of it. So
Ah.
things were pretty bad for me at the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that I could get government support or anything like that. So at the time, I just started selling everything.
Yeah.
This included all my gear. So I had a 5D Mark II. I had a lot of lighting equipment. I had a whole bunch of L series lenses that I all used at the time.
Mm.
Then I thought photography's over for me,
Yeah.
And my girlfriend goes, you can have my 1000D and this 50 millimeter 1.8.
Mm.
Just take it. It was her camera. She said, just take it. You need it more than I do.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, oh my God, yes, thank you so much, and so the 1000D, just to put it into perspective, is the cheapest, the most horrible Canon DSLR you can get.
Yeah.
It is the lowest of the low.
Mm.
The 50 millimeter 1.8 is the cheapest lens you can buy from Canon, right?
Mm.
I was shooting with this for about 2 years, simply because eventually I did run into more money, but I felt I didn't need a better camera. I didn't need a better lens.
Mm.
Because that was all I needed. So that's what I recommend because of that experience that I went through.
Mm.
Any photographer that wants to get into, or any starting photographer that wants to buy gear, I always tell them just buy the cheapest SLR you can and get a 50 millimeter 1.8 with it or something similar. Don't get a zoom lens, don't get anything else. Just get that,
Mm.
and you're set. That's all you're gonna need for at least like 4 or 5 years until you've mastered you know, until you've mastered it, because
Mm.
it will take time.
Yeah.
But gear is never the answer to better photos.
Mm.
Better gear is never the answer. So photography is not an expensive hobby at all. So
Mm.
those two things you can buy them probably, second hand, but altogether for about $300.
Yeah.
So it's not expensive.
Mm. It always seems to be a thing of interest to me that a hobby is as expensive in the end as you want it to be. And half the time it's not so much about needing quality gear as much as it is a desire to play with the toys that come with the hobby.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I can certainly understand your perspective there, and it's usually that time when you have to, for whatever reason, when you have to get rid of or otherwise do without the toys, that you realize whether or not you have an actual genuine interest in and passion for the thing that you're doing, or whether you're just collecting the kit.
Exactly. Yep.
So I tell you, take me through the, for want of a better word, the mechanics of a shoot, because I mean, looking at your photos, it's definitely more than just pointing a camera at someone in a costume, saying smile, and pressing the shutter button.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm.
I'll run you through it. It's from my point of view, it's fairly simple. It's not too complicated.
Mm.
So what you do, so first you look at the character you're shooting, right?
Mm.
And if you don't know what character that is, you ask them, what time frame is this character from? The reason why you need to ask that question is, let's say the character is from some fantasy world that looks kind of like the 12th century,
Mm.
right? What you got to do then, you have to avoid getting anything modern into your background.
Yeah.
That's why it's important you ask that question.
Mm.
If it's a character that's from a futuristic kind of setting, then you can look for like, anything that's like a reflective wall or anything metallic,
Mm.
anything very, very monochrome.
Mm.
Um,
I'm looking at the.
that's why it's
Mm.
important to ask that question.
Yeah, I'm looking at the
Because
moment at your DeviantArt profile, and being a Tron fan, I'm immediately drawn to
yeah.
the Siren 2 photo, and yeah, it's looking at that setting. I was just thinking, Carl, where the heck did you find that? It
That is a
does.
convention photo. That is
Mm.
just a convention photo. So some people say, what I hear a lot of photographers say is, it's a convention. I couldn't find a better location. I call them out and I say that's not true.
Mm.
I disagree with that. You can find a spot for any character, for anything,
Mm.
You just have to walk around a little bit more. That spot right there for the Tron photos,
Mm.
that was just a 2-minute walk, and nobody else used that spot because nobody walked over there.
Yeah. And then you've got the one of your most recent ones with Yaya Han, the Assassin's Creed picture, which again looks like it was, you found a pretty bloody good setting for that costume.
What happened there was that I just landed in LA. I met her at her hotel room, and she drove to that location.
Aha.
That was a little Chinese temple. But yeah, if you have the preparation,
Mm.
if you're doing on-location shoots, not at cons,
Mm.
then you can really just find the perfect background for the character you're shooting. And it's very important because it helps sell the overall image.
Yeah.
It helps with the immersion as well, it helps with the believability.
Mm.
So location is extremely important. So that's the first thing you look at when you're shooting. Then the second thing you look at is you look at colors. So you look at the primary colors on your subject.
Mm.
Most costumes are very simple in color tone, simply because of how characters are designed. In anime, every character has to look different enough, so they're often one particular color. So because of that, you can look at that color. You can go, okay, what color is complementary to that?
Mm.
And you try and get close to that color with your background.
Yeah.
Or you find a color that just blends with it really well. It can even be the same color.
Mm.
Sometimes that works too. So that's the second thing you look at. Now, once you have those things down, then you go to your location. And what you do before you start shooting is you check the lighting. Right? So you see if the lighting, you look at your subject's face. The face is the most important thing you got to look at, because that's the thing your viewers will be looking at. The face has to look right,
Yeah.
For the face to look right, the lighting has to look good. So what I do is I've got my subject, and I get them to follow me with their head.
Mm.
I get them to follow me until the lighting's just perfect, until the lighting just makes them look great. Once you're there, then you can just start shooting. And once you start shooting, you have to make sure your composition's right. You have to make sure that you're not cutting off any limbs, and all that. But that's easy.
Mm.
But those are the steps I go through. That's it. That's all there is to it.
Fantastic.
But a large part of what I do is in editing as well. So that's part of the workflow too.
I was going to ask a little bit about that. One thing that I did want to ask you about during the shoot as well, I noticed on the credits for those wonderful Death Knights photos that you took at Katsukon, that there are, as soon as my web browser lets me load them up, subject.
There are
of
three
course
assistants.
Yes, assistants: James, Jesse, and Cody. So, what role did they have in the shoot?
Okay, so this is going to sound very funny, but basically it took so Jessica and Ryan. I was in the hotel room with them. They were still making those costumes. Jessica's working on her Death Knight, and Ryan was working on his Death Knight.
Right.
They're still finishing it up. So they were doing that all day, and they know that I don't shoot with any flash or anything.
Yeah.
So I said, we're gonna have to get out there pretty soon. And they were like, "Yeah, we're trying." And when we got out there, as you can see in the picture, it's dark. It is just it's dark. The sun's completely gone. You
Which,
know,
let's face it, does work for the subject material.
it works. But when I was shooting them, they were kind of too dark. I couldn't see their faces.
Mm.
You know, so I said, hey, Cody, Jesse, and James, they were there, and I said, hey guys, can you get your mobile phones out? You know.
Aha.
So I just used their mobile phones as lighting. That's it. That's why they're credited.
Mm.
They were holding up their phones.
Mm.
People ask how I lit that photo. Phones.
Wow.
So there you go.
The mobile phone is truly the modern day Swiss Army knife.
If you look at if you look at the latest photo
Mm.
of Jessica, that actually still needs a bit of cleanup. I'm not really happy with it, but I just want to push it out there.
Yeah.
It's not really ready for print yet. I need to clean up the hair and
Mm.
everything. It's a ridiculous editing job. But if you look at that picture, you see like a blue light on the side of her face.
Yes.
Like a white blue light.
Mm.
That's just a mobile phone screen.
Ah.
That's the light of the screen. That's just I think Google Chrome was open or something.
Yeah.
On an empty window, and that's what that was. So.
Wow. I mean, looking at that photo, it looks almost like it's a piece of high-end concept art. It does look almost more, painted than photoed.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, all I did, that was just taken in a hotel room,
Mm.
and I just cut her out of the room and added some stuff,
Yeah.
add a few lights and some smoky stuff, and done,
Mm.
It did take some time though, but she wanted that picture.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about that not post-production, I suppose, that editing process. I did read a couple of the notes you made, especially on that Yaya picture, that it can sometimes take about a combination of a few photos to get the one final image.
Right. So this is something that I think a lot of other cosplay photographers just don't do.
Mm.
And I think they don't do it because they think it's too difficult, or something.
Mm.
So what I do when I have my photo, I first look at the composition, the framing. If that looks right, I look at the face, and sometimes I don't like the expression too much.
Mm.
Sometimes I feel that the cosplayer is either focusing too much on their pose, or maybe they're getting a little bit tired or something.
Mm.
So then I look at all of my other photos, and I look at another face, or from another picture where it does look right,
Mm.
and then I just combine that.
Mm.
Then I take that part of the photo and I just mask it into the other photo seamlessly.
Mm.
Sometimes I copy like an arm or a lower part of the body or just something else.
Mm.
I do this all the time, but so far nobody can really tell. So,
Mm.
yeah, and I think it's important to do that, because otherwise you could have a photo that you either won't use at all, that you won't upload, or a photo that's just not good enough.
Mm.
So.
Roughly how many photos do you find on average it takes to combine and get into that one image that you are finally happy with?
Like how many photos out of a shoot total, or?
Well, actually, I mean, say for a given shot or a given pose, how many shots do you usually take of it?
Oh, well, quite a lot.
Mm.
If I see like a good moment, like where everything just looks right,
Mm.
I take a lot of photos, just because I know I'm either going to be combining them, or because I shoot with a lens that has a very narrow depth of field.
Mm.
Because of that, I can lose focus a lot.
Ah.
So I have to take a lot of photos just to make sure I'm in focus.
Yeah.
So 10, 12 photos, something like that.
Mm.
But a total shoot, it can vary. It can be anything from where I have about 100 to 200 photos, and then I cut that down, so I get rid of like the duds,
Yeah.
or duplicates. I cut that down to anywhere from 5 to 50.
Mm.
It can really depend. Sometimes with really good shoots, I can barely delete any of the shots.
Yeah.
Because they all just work,
Mm.
So.
Mm.
Yeah.
That can again, going back to that picture of Yaya Han as the Chinese assassin, that I guess can mean a fair bit of time where the subject is having to hold a pose, and it looks like that one in particular might have been a tough one to strike for a little while.
She's a good worker, so she's very professional. So she just did it and held it. You know, she did say like ow, ow eventually, but she held it as long as she could.
Mm.
So yeah,
Sounds like fitness is required if you want to be a top flight cosplayer.
in my opinion, yes. You
Mm.
know, like when you shoot with someone who's just unfit,
Mm.
there's a lot of stuff they can't do, and that's problematic. You know, because when you're shooting certain characters, sometimes you want to go for poses that are pretty extreme. You
Mm.
know, when I shoot with someone who's in really good shape, it's really fun because it's just totally limitless. There's a cosplayer here in Australia called William Wong. I think his cosplay name is Ameno Kitaru, and I used to shoot with him quite a bit. And what was great about working with him was that he's actually a martial artist. I think he's a fitness trainer as well or something.
Ah.
So he is extremely healthy and
Mm.
extremely fit. Because of that, like I can just tell him, "Hey, can you do this?" He can just do it. Any way the human body can go, he can do it. There's another male cosplayer that I haven't actually shot with yet, but that I want to shoot with called Willie Anders or Willie Luffy Anders. And he's also just extremely fit and he can do backflips and all kinds of things, you know? So
Wow.
it's great shooting with people like that because you can just take it to the next level, you
Mm.
know?
I mean, it sounds like it's almost a fellow like that. The opportunity seems to be begging for aerial shots and that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. What I prefer to do though with aerial photos, I prefer to fake it.
Mm.
So what I would do, this is a little technique that the viewers, I guess, can have a go at. You just bring a few chairs to a shoot.
Mm.
You have your subject stand on it. They can also float on it, so they can be lying like flat on
Mm.
those chairs or whatever. And then you take another shot with them removed, the chairs removed, and everything. And then all you got to do in post is just remove the chairs,
Mm.
and then you have your person just floating in midair. And that's what it's probably better to do that for any kind of aerial action shots,
Yeah. Mm.
you know, because you'll be able to set it up a little better. And when someone's actually jumping, their faces can look really weird because of gravity,
Yeah.
you know, because of inertia. Like you can have skin kind of pull in a weird direction, which makes them look a bit funny. So
Hmm. Yeah. No, I see
uh,
what you mean. Hadn't thought of that, but
look at pictures of
hmm.
divers in midair. They look really weird.
Yeah.
So,
um. Now, cosplay photography is a business for you. What have you found having to take what you love doing and actually make it into an enterprise? How do you find that has changed what you do? And how do you make sure that you do treat it as you do respect it as a business as well as a passion?
well, so far it hasn't really changed anything at all
Mm.
because of certain rules I've set for myself.
Hmm.
So places I can get money off of will primarily be prints.
Mm.
Then secondly, let's say I shoot with a cosplayer for free that I just see at a con or whatever,
Mm.
and they want to sell that photo, they'll have to pay me for a license.
Mm.
And that can be anywhere from $150 per photo upwards.
Mm.
But it starts, so my absolute minimum per photo is 150.
Okay.
That also comes into place when let's say there's a convention
Hmm.
or some gaming competition and they want to use my photo, then, they have to pay for that license,
Mm.
that one-off license. Then after that, there's paid shoots. Paid shoots is something I don't advertise at all. But when someone messages me and they want to do a shoot,
Mm.
if they meet my whatever criteria I have, if I think they're, I guess, good enough, then I charge them $300 minimum.
Mm.
And they get 3 photos out of that, 3 fully edited photos, and yeah.
Mm.
So those are the main things I make money off of, and because of that, because I've set those that criteria, I guess, my hobby doesn't really suffer.
Mm.
I will still be shooting things that I enjoy shooting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, because I way back, in like 2010 and 11, I shot a wedding and I did this baby shoot and I did this fashion catalog thing with like kids and it was awful. It was
Yeah.
just awful, and I almost didn't want to pick up my camera again.
Ah.
So I'm never going to let that happen again, basically.
Good.
And it hasn't. So
Mm. Um, I had another question in mind, and all of a sudden, that's right. Um, at the moment, without going into specific dollar values, where does your cosplay photography business, where does it fall on the pay-to-play spectrum? Is it paying for itself, or is it all the way into pretty much covering all your bills? Do you work any other jobs as well?
it is paying for itself, and it is covering most things.
Mm,
If I need a little more, then I may need to take on a job here and there. But so far it's going okay. So,
mm,
but I wouldn't recommend like anyone that wants to make money off of photography,
mm.
don't do cosplay photography. There's no way.
Yeah. Mm,
It's gonna
mm.
take it's gonna take way too long to set up, I guess, that traction
Yeah.
to be noticed. There are so many photographers out there. It's very hard to get established.
Mm, mm.
I'm lucky because I came in very early,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm. So I guess the general advice is if you're going to do it, just do it because you want to, and
Do it for
if
fun.
if any opportunities come out of that, fantastic, all the better.
Absolutely. And never sell yourself short. So if any cosplayer approaches you for a shoot, just charge them.
Mm,
Do not, this is the biggest thing I want to just tell everyone. Do not ever, ever shoot for free.
mm.
Only shoot for free if you're walking around and you approach someone. That's when you can't ethically you can't really charge for that,
No, yeah.
But if anyone approaches you, do not ever shoot for free.
Mm.
But sadly, in this community, most people are shooting for free,
Yeah.
which is hurting the community overall. I think it's
Mm.
undervaluing photographers.
Yeah.
Photographers are like this collateral, this disposable kind of thing,
Mm.
to a lot of cosplayers.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I guess I want to try and get this podcast to address is the fact that it does at times seem to take a fair bit of courage to stand, I guess, not stand up for so much, but stand by your work and the fact that it does have value to other people. And that, if I guess there are a lot of times there is perhaps the amateur mindset where people think, oh, I'm not that good. I either shouldn't be charging because it's practice. Or I ought to offer a cut amateur rate, when they perhaps don't realise that the people who are engaging you to represent them. Therefore,
Mhm.
they see you, you know, they see you as someone who can make them look good. Therefore, you should really be going, okay, you want me to represent you. You should be paying me appropriately.
Absolutely. I mean, you're working for them. That's what you're doing.
Yeah. Mm,
That's when it's still your hobby. Sure you like doing what you do,
mm.
but you're still working for them. That's black and white. You know, why would you do that for free?
Exactly.
Doesn't make sense.
Now, normally I tend to wrap things up by asking people for three pieces of advice for people who are wanting to get started out. And it sounds like we've pretty much covered one or two, the first couple. Start off doing it because you love it. And
Yep.
if you are approached for work, never work for free. Can you think of something else that maybe you wish that you've discovered in the meantime that you perhaps wish that someone had told you at the beginning that might have made life a little bit easier?
Not really,
Mm.
but there is something that a lot of people struggle with
Mm.
because I get this question a lot from photographers that approach me at conventions. They ask me, "How do you walk up to someone and shoot with them?" And I tell them, it's very simple. You just walk up to them and you tell them you want to shoot with them. So, and that seems like a stupid bit of advice, but a lot of photographers they struggle with this. So
Mm.
it's
Mm.
because they feel, oh, my work's not good enough. But
Yeah.
here's the thing: when you're at a convention, those cosplayers, they don't care. They don't even, if they don't know you, they're not going to ask to look at your work.
Mm.
They're just happy to get their photos taken.
Mm.
So anyone you'll approach, they'll be happy to work with you. So never ever be afraid of just asking someone, "Hey, do you want to go shoot?"
Mm.
That should not be a difficult question, but it is something a lot of photographers struggle with. What I actually used to do before I went into cosplay, I would be walking around just on the streets, and I'd see someone that I thought looked very photogenic or very interesting, and I would ask them. I'd have my camera there and be like, "Hey, you want to go shoot?"
Hmm.
And it worked.
Yeah.
So even people on the street, strangers, they will agree.
Hmm.
Will enjoy getting their photos taken.
Yeah.
But you got to be confident about it. Obviously, you can't. Don't be nervous or anything.
Hmm. Of
There's no
course.
reason to be nervous. So.
Yeah, I've got to admit I've kind of encountered that myself while I've been making these episodes of the podcast. Occasionally I'll be telling folks about the guests I've had on, and they'll say, "Holy crap, how did you get that person on the show?" And I say, "It's simple. I asked them." Um,
Which ones have you gotten on?
well, I tell you what, I will, for folks who are listening, of course, you can go to www.paytoplay.com.au and check out my library of previous episodes on the show. So I won't perhaps bore you folks who are listening by going through the list. Beethy, yeah, I'll brag once we get the interview done.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yeah. Now, one final thing, of course, I have to ask. Where can people find you online or anywhere in general if they want to take a look at your work or engage your services? How's the best way to do so?
Best way to do so is by typing Beethy into Facebook or into Google.
Mm.
You can Google me if you want to just find me anywhere. You'll see my photos.
Mm.
My name is totally unique, so that's kind of got its advantage. But yeah, just open up Facebook, type in Beethy, and I actually do reply to most messages I get to my page. I do get a few, quite a lot.
Mm.
I don't reply to the people that think I'm a girl that want my number. So
Mm.
so if you want my number, I'm probably not going to reply. But any help, any advice, I will reply and will help you out. So
Mm.
get in touch with me there. If you want to shoot with me, again, message me.
Mm.
And we'll make it happen. Yeah.
And in case, folks, you do happen to have your notebooks out right at the moment and you can't access your device that you're playing this on, that's Beethy, which is Bravo, Echo, Echo, Tango, Hotel, Yankee. That's how you spell it, folks. So please go check him out. On that note, Beethy, thank you once again for coming on the Pay to Play podcast. It's been absolutely fun chatting with you.
That's all good. It's been my pleasure.